So in this video, we're going to be looking at cell parts, part 2. There was so much in part 1, we couldn't fit it all into one video. So here we go, part 2. Talking about the other things first. Lysosomes, my favorite. We've actually talked about a word with that prefix lysosomes, or that prefix LYS. Remember, hydrolysis had to do with breaking things. So lysosomes do that too. These are like little membrane-bound stomachs, almost. They recycle old cell parts. They recycle objects that are foreign to the cell. They're filled with like little digestive enzymes that will break things down into individual pieces, and then the cell can actually use those pieces to build its own stuff. So lysosomes, very important in the life of the cell in kind of breaking things down, returning them back to the cell. Vacuoles are next. Vacuoles are found in plant cells, but they're also found in animal cells. They're used to store things. Plants, you see the large central vacuole there in the middle of that cell. I love that picture because it shows that very clearly. And there's a lot of other things with vacuoles that we could go into, but we're not going to. Vacuoles, they're specialized vacuoles. Some organisms use them to like propel themselves through the fluid and different things like that. We're not worried about that. You just need to know vacuoles storage, and then that'll be good. Here comes the mitochondria. Mitochondria is one of those things where people know about it because of silly memes and things. The powerhouse of the cell. I just don't like that because it's not very specific. It's really ambiguous. What is a powerhouse? What does it do? Who knows? We're not going to use that definition. You can write it. It'll be wrong. What you need to know is that the mitochondria breaks down glucose to make ATP. What is ATP? ATP is the energy currency of the cell, meaning that when the cell needs to do something involving energy, it spends ATP. And so mitochondria is found in animal and plant cells. You could also say for the mitochondria that it is the site of cellular respiration. Cellular respiration is that process of breaking down glucose to make ATP. And so make sure that you have that kind of specificity when it comes to the mitochondria. That the powerhouse of the cell is just not, it works for third grade, but it doesn't work for us. And so mitochondria, site of cellular respiration, breaking down glucose to make ATP. Chloroplast, very closely related, but not the same thing at all. It's found only in plant cells or other things that do photosynthesis that are eukaryotes. And the main thing that the chloroplast does is photosynthesis. What is that? Converting sunlight and CO2 into glucose. So they're highly related, right? Glucose is broken down in the mitochondria. It's made in the chloroplast. And so they have a nice relationship, which we'll talk about in the next unit. It's exciting. Chloroplasts. And there's all kinds of parts to the chloroplast. You don't have to know any of them for this unit. Cytoskeleton. Cytoskeleton does what it sounds like. It gives the cell structure and support. Allows the cell to move in some cases. It allows things inside the cell to move around as well. It's very important. There are 3 main elements of the cytoskeleton. I'm going to go over them in different order than they're presented in this picture, but that's okay. We're going to look at them. First, you have the microtubules. The microtubules are the largest elements of the cytoskeleton. These are pretty flexible. They're almost like ropes. That's the way I like to think of them, as like ropes, big, thick ropes. They maintain cell shape a little bit, transport inside the cell of materials, and they're very important in cellular division when the cell is moving things around inside the cell. These microtubules are used to do that. We're going to talk about a couple of specialized microtubules in just a moment. Microfilaments are the next one we'll look at. These are the smallest examples of the cytoskeleton. These are actin filaments, which it says here on this particular picture, and they're important for cell shape, cell movement as well. Think muscle cells in particular, muscle contraction. This is an important part of actin filaments. And then lastly are intermediate filaments. These are medium thickness, that's hence the name, and they give the cell shape and structure. And their big thing is that they're stiff, and so they give the cell strength against physical stresses, which is an important part of a cell's life, to not be able to just be squished all the time. And so these 3 elements of cytoskeleton are very important in maintaining structure, shape, and movement for cells. Speaking of movement, There's two specialized elements of the cytoskeleton, the cilia and flagella. Both of these are microtubules. And cilia is these little hair-like projections you see there on the left, and they move the cell around. Or they can be used to move things on the cell. Could be that too. And then flagella is this whip-like thing. It's like a little tail that uses it to swim. It's pretty fun. Moving on. Extracellular matrix, or ECM for all of its friends. It's a complex kind of three-dimensional structure you can see there. It looks like a bunch of like Christmas tree ornaments and like little worms, but it's none of those things. It's just a lot of different things. Proteoglycan. You don't need to know any of that stuff. I just like those words. Proteoglycan. That's a good word. So what does it do? It gives structural support for the outside of the cell. Also allows the cell to kind of connect with the surrounding tissues. Allows the cell to kind of move through its environment. Allows for the cell to signal other cells, and also allows the cell to signal inside of itself. And so you can see here how the inside of the cell is represented by the bottom of this picture, and the outside is the top. And so they're kind of connected through this ECM. ECM's pretty complicated. So we're just going to kind of say that it's a supportive kind of matrix on the outside of the cell that is essential for connection to its environment and communication. And then lastly, our cell walls. Cell walls are external structures. One thing that is a misunderstanding with cell walls is that sometimes people think that cells that have cell walls do not have cell membranes. It's not the case. Remember, all cells have a cell membrane. They just also have a cell wall. Not all cells, some cells. Plants have a cell wall. Their cell walls are made out of a carbohydrate called cellulose. And fungi and bacteria also have cell walls. But in general, the cell wall is going to serve the same purpose. It's giving the cell protection from its environment, giving it structure and shape. Also prevents the cells from like blowing up, especially like a bacteria. Put it in water or something like that, it could burst, but it doesn't because the cell wall is there. And plants depend on their cell walls in order to stand up straight and hold all the water that they need to do all the processes that they do. Animal cells aren't able to do this because they don't have a cell wall, but cells that have cell walls are able to endure a lot more stresses than animal cells.